Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling, as you see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where we'll be relaxing as per usual. But the final day of July, tomorrow August begins, which is, interesting to see, I suppose. I'm not sure if interesting to see is really right, really the right sort of word, because, or phrasing. Is it interesting that time passes? I mean, I guess it is. Don't get me wrong. Interesting things happen when time passes, but it's not really something I feel like you describe as all like as a starting off point, as this is interesting. But anyway, good evening everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 9:12 PM on Monday, July 31st, 2023. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the 2 pre-recorded episodes from yesterday, because I was busy. Yesterday was a friend's birthday, and the day before that, I went to go see a concert. I guess I can go talk about the concert. I haven't been to many sort of I've been to concerts before, but normally the concerts I've been to tend to be much more like a traditional, orchestral concerts. I haven't been to many, I don't want to say pop artist concerts, but musical artist concerts, I've been to some music festival when I was much younger. It was not like Reading or Glastonbury or any of those. It was something like we were all on picnic blankets. It was huge. I don't remember. I was far too young to properly recall it. And of course there's one recently when I went to a Blackpink concert with a few friends, but now we went to one a much smaller artist who I don't really know that well, except for I know my friend likes him, but you might have heard of him. He's Quinn92. You can look him up. He had some tours in the UK, and we went to see him on the Saturday. He's obviously not on the same scale as huge. I'm trying to think who's a really big pop artist, I don't know, Katy Perry or something. Obviously. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. I mean, maybe you haven't heard of him, but maybe you don't know a lot of popular artists, which is fair enough. But I only know him through my friend, to be perfectly honest. And what do I think of his music? I think it's fine. I like some of the songs. I like Stacey. I like Straight Jacket during a concert, because the concert itself was the first time I heard most of the songs, and we were like, yeah, it's just enjoyable. It's not exactly my sort of music. Mainly because, I've spoken about this before, the music I listen to tends to be music which I already have an association with, which is why I tend to prefer listening to video game soundtracks, or, mainly it's just video game soundtracks, because, I have an association with a game, or the story behind it, etc, etc. Not to say I don't appreciate music which doesn't necessarily have as much as a personal story tie-in with me. It's just sort of it's not something I tend to seek out all that often. But yeah, I listened to his songs and I was like, it's good, I think he's a good performer. But it was interesting, I suppose, to see different sides of the gamut. Because of course the Blackpink concert was a really big British summer festival event. It was it's in a place called Hyde. Was it not? Yeah, it was in Hyde Park, right? Which is a really big park in London. This one was in a much smaller sort of theatre. And it literally was a theatre, a stage theatre, which, makes sense, because I was just okay, yeah, what would you have as a smaller to medium-sized establishment? A theatre makes sense. But it seemed to be a theatre combined with I'm not sure dance hall is really the right word, but it does seem like it was a music theatre, because we sat in the upper, what are they called? But stands with stalls up above, in the higher levels, the higher echelons. But what there was is in front of a stage where it was a big, I don't want to call it a mosh pit area, but a dance floor area where there weren't any theatre seatings or anything, which you can get standing tickets for. So it very much seems like it was designed for, as a musical concert place, and probably for smaller artists, which makes sense because there should be more opportunities for people who are not obviously breakaway superstars or something to also be able to share their work and talent, because there obviously is an audience for it. The entire place was packed. Well, okay, I wouldn't say it was 100% capacity, but the stands that we were in, not the standing area was absolutely packed. I don't even know how everyone fit in there, but the seats were in, we were I'd say 60 to 70% full, which is still pretty reasonable, I'm not gonna lie. Obviously far better than I could put in anything. And if I was a musical artist and I was performing to a room of that, I'd be yeah, this is a dream come true, this is amazing. Can you imagine? There probably was a couple of 100 people or something, probably more than a couple hundred people there. That must be incredible to perform to. I don't mean to diminish his efforts or anything at all, even if it comes off that way. It's just, yeah, that'd be awesome. But the interesting thing was, this was like a sort of mix of like a standing, sitting concert, you know. We were in the stands, you know, like the stalls or whatever. Everyone had not assigned seating, mind you. We all just had a seat which we sat in. I don't know why I said that so weirdly. And we weren't in like the standing section of like the dance floor or whatever, where everyone else of course is standing and jumping up and down, etc., etc. But we were still in an area. But musical concerts like this, musical artist concerts, I suppose, it's very customary, I think, for people to, you know, like get up and start dancing. You know, obviously there's a little bit of imbibing of alcoholic drinks and beverages, but there's also, you know, people just having a good time, fun time dancing, like letting loose and all that, right? It's kind of just like that's the point of music, right? I mean, it's not the point to dance, I suppose, necessarily, but to inspire emotions to some degree, right? And dancing is just a really good way, I suppose, to express that, no? But it was an interesting sort of dynamic because, I mean, me personally, obviously, I've not heard like most of these songs before. It's kind of, you know, while I'm also not particularly like, I suppose, expressive as a person, so I'm not really the type of person to like jump out my seat and start like dancing. A lot of the time, well, I do like dancing. It's just like I don't know. It's not really something I do. I'm much more reserved with these sort of things. Apologies, a little bit of a pause. But yeah, we were at the most interesting thing is the fact that we were sitting down, I suppose, at a concert which is usually, I'm sure, with people standing. Like, if you imagine like a stock photo of a music festival or concert, you see people in the, like, standing up, reaching their hands out to whoever's singing on stage. The person singing on stage got like a hand around the microphone near the mouth, reaching out to the crowd as well. And it's sort of like I don't know how to describe it except for they're doing a sort of like a can position. No, that's not really the right way to just, like, kicking, but also like with one leg bent, you know. I don't really know where I was going with this. Anyway, so a lot of people actually did end up standing up and dancing, because, you know, who can blame them? It's like a fun musical concert. Like, what? Not necessarily why wouldn't you, but yeah, I guess why wouldn't you? So yeah, it's not really something to be all surprised about, I suppose, the fact that people were dancing to it. But still, there became a sort of awkward moment, I suppose, that if you are one of the people who are dancing to it, you know, you had to sort of be mindful of the people behind you, right? That you're not going to block your view. Because there was someone who, like, I was sitting on third row back, and there was like a group of people who were like on the front row who, you know, might have imbibed in a bit of alcohol, and I was very surprised that the drinks didn't end up dropping off like the stands thing, because they kept them on like the banisters, which I don't think I would ever do. I'm not sure banisters are like the railing sort of a thing, but the railing's kind of more like a barrier. I'm not sure if I've ever put a drink on there, not because I don't trust the integrity of it, but I'd be so worried that I'd like accidentally knock it off and then I just ruin someone's night because I just spilled like half a glass of beer on them or something. Well, half a plastic cup, not a full-on glass would be very dangerous, I think, but no, they were giving out all in plastic cups. But the person directly in front of me didn't stand up and didn't dance. She was I could actually tell that she was kind of being considerate about it, because, you know, like a friend next to her started like standing up and dancing, and she just like looked backwards and was like, no, I'm not going to block these people, you know. Honestly, if she wanted to, she can. Because again, I wasn't like, wow, I have to see exactly what's going on in musical concerts, as my friend described, auditory experience. So, you know, as long as I can hear the music, I think that's fine. But I do respect consideration as well. But the person in that front row just, like, you know, a lot of the time just kept, like, you know, standing up and dancing and that sort of thing. And I felt kind of bad for the woman in front of me, who just like kept having to like lean out like a meter to the side just to like try and see the stage of what's going on, because she's clearly invested and wanting to see, you know, the artist performing, and I certainly can't blame her. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, it's kind of what you bought concert tickets for. So it's a sort of thing where it's like either everyone has to stand up or no one has to stand up, or you can do the thing where you go into a back row and you stand up, because a lot of people did that. They just went into a back row and just stood up to like dance along. And if they're standing up behind you, you might as well stand up as well, because now it's like there's no one behind you anymore who you're going to block, and then it sort of becomes a ripple effect downwards. I sort of just sat there because, you know, again, I wasn't not really the type to just up and dance, I suppose, like that. But I still enjoyed it. Nonetheless, it just felt like an interesting experience. I will say the worst thing about those sitting down seats in that theatre is the fact that it's way too small. It's so cramped. Like, I'm a tall person. I'm 180 centimeters tall, which is 5'11", I think. So I'm pretty tall. But my knees had like no room to go. Like I was sitting like as far back in my seat as possible, and my knees were just like, it was maybe like 2 centimeters, a centimeter like clearance between my knees and the chair in front. I'm like, obviously I don't want to constantly hit into the chair in front of me. That's going to be really annoying for the lady in front of me, because it's like, oh, you know, I'm sure most people probably don't want to feel constantly like tapping into the back of their seat. So, you know, I'm trying to sort of be conscious of that, but it's also kind of difficult at the same time. Okay, we have a lot of things we can do here. Number one thing, let's go. Take my picture, and let's go hit some rocks and get some fruits to sell. But yeah, it's a sort of thing where you're like, but why do these seats have to be so small? You know, they really are quite tiny, and I can't imagine many people are particularly comfortable in that sort of like tiny seating area. At least I wasn't particularly comfortable like that, but you know, it's also the sort of thing where it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? You know, it's not like you can manifest more space or anything like that. You just sort of had to deal with your knees hitting it, or you can start standing up and dancing, which I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. Lots of people did, but not me. But it's interesting, I suppose, how they're like, why don't people get up and start, you know, grooving to like musical concerts as well, you know, like why is no one like, you know, dropping it down, I suppose, when J.S. Bach's Prelude in C minor, did he write Prelude in C minor? I can't remember. Or did he write a Prelude in C minor, I should say. I don't know. It's being played by like the Philharmonic Orchestra. Actually, I think a Prelude in C minor is probably just a piano piece, so I don't know why the whole orchestra would be playing it, but still, you know, maybe more dancing should be encouraged in all sort of festivals, but in all sort of musical concerts. But now I think about it, maybe it shouldn't be. You know, not everyone's there to, you know, dance. Some people are just there to appreciate the music, I suppose. I suppose it has quite the tie to sort of like refine. How do you turn refinement? Refinement-y? That's not a word. Which I don't know if that's necessarily something to be scorned or not. I guess that just kind of is, you know, the evolution of, by nature, of what these art forms are, isn't it? I mean, very traditionally, I don't think it's... I mean, well, I suppose if anything, it's kind of like to do with dances associated with music. Like, what sort of dances are associated with, like, classical, romantic, or Baroque music? I was like, I couldn't think of a word. I'm sure it's much more classical dances, you know, things like... Well, I'm not really sure ballroom dancing is. That's more of a waltz thing, but still. But things of, you know, like, hip-hop, like... EDM, etc. is something you definitely associate more with like clubbing culture, like nightlife culture, right? It makes more sense to be on a dance floor jamming out like that. And I mean, that kind of is what the music's there for, isn't it? It's kind of like they have two different aspirations, I suppose. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but just basically the long and short of it is like, I guess it's kind of, it feels a bit strange to be sitting down when you should be standing up, and standing up when you should be sitting down, right? Like, I've been, of course, to a couple of like classical sort of concerts in my life. One of them I do remember was school. Yeah. The thing I remember most about it is the fact that we were going to sit down in our seats, and then the seats, like, say they were like 68, 69, 17, 71 or whatever, but then there was a couple sitting in like seats 70 and 71, and we were like, oh, I think you might be in our seats, and they were like, no. And we were like, all right. So then the four of us were like, well, what are we going to do? I guess we'll just like sit in the 2 seats we got left, because they were wide seats, to be fair. 4 of us could actually sit in the 2 seats. But the entire time, next to our couple, just to the left, there were 2 empty seats. Which the entire time I was thinking, I was like, I'm pretty sure those are your seats which you should be sitting in. Now, well, we had a choice, I suppose, at the time, you know. It's like, the sensible thing you would say to do in retrospect would be like, you'd be like, can you check, are you sure those are not your seats, because these are the seat numbers on our tickets? You know, if I was, you know, like, bear in mind I was like 13 back then. If I was 25-year-old me implanted into that 13-year-old brain, that's probably what I would do. Just be like, hey, move over. Or something like that. Or if you're not even meant to be sitting here, what are you doing here, you know? And the alternative, if they're still being very stubborn and insistent, just sit in their seats, I suppose, until you get kicked out, I suppose, and then you'll be like, all right, these two got to go, it turns out, because you're not even sitting in the right section. But no, we were like, no, we weren't 13, I don't think. We're 16, 17 or something at the time. It's like, okay, we're clearly like half the average age of the demographics here. Let's not try and be disruptive or something. You know, let's not give a bad name to our school or whatever. As they say, because school uniform is very common in the UK, and you had to wear them on school trips most of the time. You know, you're representing your school and all that, and very much you don't want to just like be the person who gives them a bad name, makes people, you know, have a resentful association, right? Anyway, that's the only thing I remember. Anyway, I don't think anyone even stood up for that. Even when it's time for, like, you know, standing ovation, quote times, people don't stand up for a standing ovation in the classical orchestral concert, not what I recall. What do people do? Stand up in musical theatre, you know, at the end of a performance? Everyone, you know, not everyone, a lot of people would stand up to clap and that sort of thing, but most of the time people remain sitting for the entire show. It's just, I don't know if it's strange and necessarily in a bad way. If anything, I find it quite comfortable. I find it, you know, quite nice to be able to sit down, I suppose, and watch a concert. I suppose it'd be doubly better if I was sitting down and I could still see over the top of someone who was sat in front of me. If they were standing, like if I was like in football stands or something. But no, most of the time I prefer to sit down for like a piece of entertainment. Like standing up for a long time is kind of tiring, I'm not gonna lie. To be fair, I did do it for, you know, I guess the Blackpink concert, but still, I mean, I spent a lot of that day sort of sitting down at the same time. And was I really grooving, I suppose, at a Blackpink concert? And even then, I don't know if I was really grooving more than sort of just like, you know, bobbing my head and tapping my foot, which is, you know, the extent of my active actions, I suppose, when it comes to reacting to something, which, I don't know, maybe you say that's a bit disappointing, and maybe that is. I certainly can't, I don't have a good, like, comeback, nor should I really have a comeback. I don't really have a retort to that. I think it, you know, it just do be who I am. But yeah, I don't know, standing up, sitting down. Oh, I forgot we had a start. I think it's going to be Coco. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just sort of reminded, you know, I mean, you are Nelly? Tucker, never mind. I'm just reminded of that guy who was very passionately dancing on the front row, I suppose, blocking most of my view. But amusingly, the person who was in front and to my left was actually recording on her phone, I suppose. At that time, maybe it was like a favourite song or something. So I just kind of ended up watching the performance through her phone, which is probably not the best way to do it. And it does remind me of a time when we went to go see the New Year fireworks in London, where the person in front of me was basically recording on her phone the entire time. And might I add, we didn't have like the greatest angle, and it was incredibly smoky. So the only thing I could think was like, that video is not going to look great when you go back to watch it. But it also meant, I guess I could kind of watch it through her phone, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, certainly a lot better than someone like holding up a, you know, like a wooden sign in front of me. At least I could see what's going on. Anyway, standing up, sitting down, who knows what you're really meant to do in that situation. You know, it's sort of like a, I feel like you're meant to be sitting down until everyone decides now is the time to stand, you know, and like encore songs or later on or whatever, or everyone's having a good time. Then everyone, you know, stands up and parties, except for me, who I guess I just continue to sit down. I don't really know where I'm going with this. Anyway, I'm going to round this episode off here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been dear darling. Likes, comments, discussion, shares greatly appreciated. Twitter, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again. But for now, it's farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.